What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back again with another Friday stream where we get together as a community and talk about whatever topic I've come up with for the week, and this week is no exception. So hello to the folks who are here so far. I see Fade, Glenn, Jabo, Judy, Arnaud. Let's see, Michael, Big Edie, Minas Mizar, Rob, Larry Schemer, Mark over on the YouTube side, and Rudolph or Rudy. Nice to see you all. Glad to be here on this balmy Friday. I don't know, in Athens, it's just been ridiculous, the temperatures these days. Let me see here. Big Edie says, how are we starting so early? It's not early, it's on time. Because today I was more or less prepared. We'll see how well things go, but you know, you gotta try a little bit sometimes. And today I just happened to have the time and energy to try. Hello to Dave in the IRC, the pin back on YouTube. Also Jeff over on the IRC side. All right, so cool stuff to talk about today related to Denote 3.0. I haven't really gone through it too much yet, but we'll do it together and see how things go. But first of all, let's get into the news. Interesting thing has come up this week. Emacs Conf 2024 has announced a call for participation. It's basically a call for proposals for talks. The conference is going to be December 7th and 8th this year. Seems a bit later than last year. I feel like it was not so late, but that's okay. I mean, it is when it needs to be. So if you go over to the website for that, which is emacsconf.org/2024/CFP, you'll see the information page for the call for participation. I think that it's like last year where the talk format is pretty short. Usually it's a 5 to 10 minute lightning talk or a 20-minute talk. I believe they do accept longer proposals, but you have to kind of, you know, make a case for it, I guess. I think the shorter talk length kind of helps move things along, which is nice. Also, it gives more people a chance to have a talk in the weekend. So I think the deadline for that is the September 20th. So if you've got like a thing that you're interested in about Emacs these days that you think is cool, I'd highly recommend submitting a proposal for a talk for the conference. It's a very kind of laid back and friendly environment for giving a talk at a conference. It's a virtual conference, so all the talks are pre-recorded in advance and then played live so that the person giving the talk has, you know, everything's prepared. You don't have to worry about, you know, stressing over getting your stuff perfect live. And then you get to answer questions live after the talk or the recorded talk plays. So it's kind of a cool little experience. Alternate Vet says in the chat, David started the stream 2 hours ago. No, I did not start it 2 hours ago. That would be nice though, I guess, if I was that organized. Michael says, what's it like in Athens? It's just hot. It's just hot. That's all I can say. It cooled off a little bit, but it's still too hot. So yeah, I don't know if I'll be submitting anything yet. Haven't really thought about it, but maybe I should, because it's been a couple of years. I think I gave a talk 2021. So it's been a while since I gave a talk last time. Let's see. Yep, that's pretty much it. So give that a look. Next thing is that my LibrePlanet 2024 keynote finally got posted, the recording of it. Let me actually be more specific here. The recording of my keynote. Okay, so if you go to the media.libreplanet.org website, the recording is now there. You can check that out if you didn't get to see it whenever it happened live, either in person or on the online or the live stream, I suppose. So I haven't actually watched the recording all the way through yet. I don't know how good the talk was, so you'll have to tell me. But you know, I think it's okay. So hopefully you will enjoy it too. And I think that's it for the news this week. I wasn't really dialed in to what's going on in the world this week. I actually kind of had a little bit of a minor detour into game development again. I was kind of looking for a project to get remotivated, and I settled on using Chibi Scheme. If you haven't heard about Chibi Scheme, it's pretty cool. Chibi Scheme. It's basically a R7RS scheme implementation that is meant for embedding in C programs or whatever program you like, I guess. But it's very well geared towards being an embedded language in a program. So what I basically did was write a C program using the Raylib graphics library or game development library, and wrote FFI bindings from Chibi Scheme to Raylib, which is pretty easy, and made a little game. I don't actually have anything to show right now, but anyway, that's why this week I've been a little bit tuned out from the general news of things. I've been just having a little bit of fun doing some game programming. Maybe I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Jabo says, the talk was good, but it's a good idea to watch it at 0.75 speed. Yes, I talked too fast. I was nervous. You know, like I arrived at the venue. I had just finished writing the talk, so I was a little bit nervous. And I spoke too fast in the beginning, so sorry about that. Jeff says, woo, all the crafty Emacs maintainers in the house today. That's right. Judy says, it was good, but I think I watched it at 1.5. Yes, you must be able to tolerate fast speaking, if that's the case. All right. So, yeah, that's it for the news this week. So, at the beginning of this week, Protosilaus released version 3.0 of the venerable Denote package for Emacs, which is basically a streamlined note-taking package that can give you a Zettelkasten-like experience, sort of like org Roam, but in a more, I would say, a more craftable way. I have been using Denote for probably 2 years now, probably since it got released. I think I started it in, maybe it was 2021, 2022, maybe it was 2022. Anyway, point being, I've been using it for a long time. I like it. I've started using more of the sort of extensibility features. Finally got the word. I've been using more of the extensibility features recently, and it appears that Denote 3 actually adds some more extensibility features and some useful little tools here and there. So I'm going to run through the release notes for Denote 3, and we're going to try out some of the things that we see there. We're also going to try out a new package that Protosilaus just released called consult-denote, which is an integration between Denote and the consult minibuffer extension package. I mean, what is the right way to describe Emacs consult? Consulting completing read. So it's extensions to the completing read. It's basically just a better display, I suppose you could say, for completions. And I don't actually have Denote set up in my test environment, so I'm gonna have to fix that in a minute. That's okay though. But I don't know exactly what consult-denote provides yet, but we're going to go through the release notes for that as well, and then try it out and see maybe if there's any interesting improvements we can add to our own workflows with Denote using Denote 3.0 plus consult-denote. So I'll be going off of the release notes that have been published on the 30th of June and the 3rd of July for both these packages on Protosilaus' website. And we'll just take a look and try things out. You know, chill stream, trying out some new stuff. It's always fun. Rob says, I used Raylib with Guile for the jam last month. I remember that. Raylib's a pretty good library, easy and fast to get something working. Yeah, I think it's a cool library. Judy says the same thing. Raylib is good. I've only used it with C. Yeah, I think that if you want to use C or another language that can bind easily to a C library, then Raylib is a pretty interesting choice for game development. It's got a lot of stuff built in that makes it really easy to get started with and get something working. I wrote a basic working breakout clone in a couple days with it, and I wasn't really working on it full time, so it's pretty good. Pretty good. I might start making some videos on the Flux Harmonic channel talking about it, or one of the channels. I don't know. Not this one. I still haven't decided what I want to do about game development content, but I think I'm going to make some videos on it just because it's interesting for a person who doesn't have a lot of time to spend learning how to do game development, GrayLib is a good library that has a lot of stuff built in, so that if you don't have a lot of time, you can actually get a lot done if you're working on 2D or even 3D games, kind of basic games, let's say. Let's see. Ashra says, I'm catching up on the stream at 2x speed. We'll be with you in a minute. I should start talking twice as fast so that it messes with Ashra. Okay. Hello to Anton over on the YouTube side. All right. So let's get into it. I've got a little test config here with very little in it. I think I probably need to add consult to this as well. So let me do that. In fact, I should pull up the example config. Where is that? What did I just see? I swear when I scrolled by this looked like grape and find. So clearly my mind is not really working well at the moment. Okay. Oh, here it is, finally. Yeah, I don't want this whole thing. Let me just pull in consult. I don't know if it works with iComplete vertical mode. Anybody know if the consult works with iComplete vertical? I can pull in vertico too, but I just was going to try to avoid pulling in things that aren't necessary. Let's see, automatic preview in the completions buffer, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I don't think we need anything else. Maybe it's just that. Let's just start with that. Ensure T. And I believe if I just use consult buffer, scratch, there we go. Yeah, it's good enough. I don't know if we need vertical also. Judy says, points at crafted Emacs for a base config. I'm trying to go even smaller than that, I think, just to have something that I can just drop into the show notes. All right, so first, let's get into the Denote notes. So version 3.0, Denote aims to be a simple to use, focus and scope, and effective note-taking and file naming tool for Emacs. Interesting that he calls out the file naming aspect of that. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I think this is more of the preamble to describe the project. So, yeah, major release comes about 2 years after the first version of Denote, which was published on June 27th of 2022. That makes sense because that's around the time. I think I started using it in July of 2022. Version 3 iterates on refinements that we made over the lifecycle of version 2. Existing users will find that their workflow remains the same, though they now have even more options at their disposal. So I think the benefit of Denote at this point is that it has a very simple, well, I guess I should probably just explain what Denote is for those who don't know, because I keep running into folks who haven't seen it yet. So Denote is a more straightforward note-taking package. It doesn't support just org mode. It also supports markdown and text files. And it also can support other files that are not even notes. That can support images, videos, etc. And when I say support, what I mean by that is that Denote is based around this file naming scheme that makes it very easy to deal with the note file. So if you were to look at the notes folder that we're in right now, the file naming structure is the date timestamp, -- and then the title of the note with hyphens for whatever the spaces were, and then 2 underscores, and then whatever tags are associated with that file. So the reason why this is interesting is because you can use conventional command line tools or even things like dired or Emacs, normal Emacs list functions to filter all the files that are in your notes folder. So those files can be org files, it could be other text note files, or they could be images, videos, anything else. It's sort of an organization system in that sense. You have a date, you have a title, and you have tags on the file name. So it's an interesting tool from that perspective because it gives you a way to easily organize a bunch of files. Also, it gives you the ability to link between files, or let's say text note files, in a way that you can reason about the links between files. You can get all the backlinks from a file, sort of like how you can do in org roam. This is sort of the foundation of what a modern Subtlecasting system would be. And what I mean by that is you have you don't write really long org note files, you write smaller note files, but then you have links between them. And those links are actually meaningful because you can call up the list of notes that link to the current note and get some information about sort of the connections between notes that you have in your personal knowledge base, let's say. So Denote does all of this without a database, unlike OrgRoam. OrgRoam has a database where it kind of keeps all the metadata for all of your files. Denote just looks at the file names, basically. So that makes it a bit more flexible for extension. And most of the work that's going on for Denote these days is extending that model to make it easier for you to build your own workflows customizations or build packages on top of Denote that give extra functionality. And I think that's the whole purpose behind V3, is to give you more hooks for customizing your own Denote workflow, which is interesting to me because I've been looking more and more into how to leverage Denote to build a personal knowledge and productivity system, which I'll expand on a bit more in some upcoming videos and possibly a course in the next few months, which you may hear about soon. So interesting that this is going to be more of a focus in V3. So I'm excited to look into that. Let me see. Ashra says you might need a mod on Twitch. Second time a promotion bot sent a message via restream for Twitch. Yeah, I have mods on Twitch, but maybe none of them are around. I'll have to deal with that another time. Yeah, I know the bots keep showing up. That's okay. Redacted says, is there an advantage to Denote for someone who takes notes exclusively in org syntax? Yes, the file naming scheme and some of the other features of Denote. Now, one thing for org that's really interesting, which I've started to use more recently, is something called Denote org dblock. Let's see. Find library. There we go. My brain finally kicked in. Find library, Denote. Hey, now. Did I not press enter? I have to complete the whole thing? Come on. Whatever. Denote org dblock. There it is. Oh, God. I'm used to Vertigo so much, and this thing is killing me. Maybe I should just pull the ripcord here. I complete vertical mode. Turn it off. Turn it off. I don't know if it's iComplete or if it's me being an idiot, but so let's go with use package. All right, let's just get that pulled down. And vertigo mode. All right, now maybe this is going to be a little bit more streamlined for our purposes. I'm going to pull up that as well. All right, now we're good. Bade says, has stream started? Yeah, dude. Judy says, you wanted to mod me a while back. I can monitor if you want. Yeah, definitely. I will add you whenever I pull up Twitch. Okay. So let me just get that out of here. Anyway, we were looking at org dblock. Denote org dblock. Hey. I'm gonna have to pull in interesting. It's in org extras. Anyway, the idea is that in an org file, maybe I already did that. Let's take a look at one of these org files that are here. Some of my key bindings are not working, so I'm sweating. All right, so System Crafters. I think I have one in there, if it loads. There we go. So this Denote links thing. So the original question was from Redacted. Is there any value to Denote for someone who uses org syntax? Yes, there is. There's things like this in org files where you can say Denote links. So it's like a begin end block. And you can pull in files based on a regular expression. So if you have what you might call a meta note, where it's kind of like an index for notes of a certain type. Maybe it's tagged with a certain tag, or maybe it has a certain word in the title, etc. You can use this denote links block to pull in any notes that, see, I just pulled it in right here by hitting Control-C on the header here. It just looks over all your note files and pulls in any notes that match the regex and then inserts links to those. So that by itself is a pretty useful technique for keeping index files up to date. So you don't have to use like the backlinks functionality dynamically. You can just have a file that has all the sort of backlinks, references, or just any files that match any regular expression to pull into a note file. So I kind of like that. Ashra says, did the music just die? No. Ashra says, org dblocks in general feel a bit underrated. I never heard about dblocks until I saw this feature of Denote, so it's kind of an interesting thing. Okay, so back to the real thing here. File name components. We're back to the Denote 3.0 release notes. File name components can now be written in any order. This is not something that's so interesting to me, because I kind of like the way that the notes are currently set up, or the note file names are currently set up. But if you wanted to change the way that files are named, so maybe like the title comes first, or you change the order of where the tags are, etc., there's now a denote file name components order variable that you can use to customize that. Someone must have had a specific reason to add this. I personally don't feel like it's necessary for the average Denote user, unless like you just don't like the way that the files are named and you want a different structure. So I am perfectly fine with the way that Denote names the files by default, so I probably would never change this. And it says at the end here, please remember that the file naming scheme is the cornerstone of Denote. I agree. If you do change how your notes are named, make sure to be consistent throughout. Otherwise, you will likely make it harder for yourself to find what you need. Exclude certain files from all prompts. Sometimes users keep files in their Denote directory that they do not want to interact with. These can, for example, be what org produces when exporting to another file format or when archiving a heading. Interesting. So there's just like, random files that end up in your folder, maybe. The user option, denote excluded files regular expression, makes it possible to omit all those files from the relevant denote prompts. Let's take a look at that one. So what was it called? Denote excluded files regex. All right. Regular expression of files that are excluded from denote file prompts. This is for completion when using commands like denote link or denote open or create. Is that new? Open or create, visit target file in variable denote directory. If file does not exist, invoke denote to create a file. Yeah, I actually do use this one. I thought it was named something else though. In that case, use the last input as the file prompt in the default value of the title prompt. Did I read that correctly? I think I just had a stroke. So yes, if you have stuff in your folders that you don't want to show up in the various prompts that Denote gives you for the listing of files that you already have, then you can use that. Now, for me, I actually do put other files in the Denote folder sometimes, like for instance, an inbox file. There are certain files that I would consider like static, like inbox.org. Like if you want to do capturing to an inbox, you don't really want to have like a weird long file name in the normal Denote style for that. I mean, maybe you do. I don't know. There's reasons why you could want that, but I felt like, okay, maybe I'll just have that be a normal .org file, but it will still be in my Denote directory, my notes directory. So this variable would give me the ability to exclude that file from any file prompts when I'm looking for an actual Denote note. I'm not actually sure that most people will need this, but it's there if you need it. I think this must be related to the org publishing stuff that comes later in the notes. Ashra says, the documentation of that thing said is introduced or changed in 3.0. Interesting. I wonder... Denote, open, or create. Did it say that? Did it say open or change? No, I don't see that in here. All right. So next. This is in response to requests for such a user option by Samuel Flint. Let's see. I'm curious what the backstory is on these. Text output files. Okay, so someone is exporting their Denote notes to LaTeX files to make it so that downstream tools do not misinterpret these files. All right. And then or archive subtree to archive tree. I already have done stuff from. Would like to keep it in my notes. Okay, they want to get rid of the archive files. I have another idea for how to manage that with Denote, but that's for another time. Hey, Elijah and Fikri. Okay. So, whoops, wrong page. Links in plain text and markdown files are buttonized differently. Before, we were using the function denote link buttonize buffer, which would create buttons for all denote links it would. So basically, if you have a text file, a .txt file, which really doesn't have any markup or anything, but you're using it as a denote note, it is possible to link to other denote notes, and this link buttonize buffer function will turn those links into clickable links to the note in question. So apparently this has changed. We now provide an approach that is technically better by using Emacs fontification mechanism. All the user needs to do is to add this to their configuration. So let's actually try that out because I want to see what it looks like. We can start with the old one too, so we can just sort of get a sense for what it looks like. I'll go back into init.el. Config. So we're going to add this hook. What's in text mode hook already? Hopefully nothing at this point. Yeah. Oh wait, text mode hook identify. Sure. Okay. So now that we've got the existing behavior, the old behavior, let's do denote. Oh, I actually want to do denote type. That's how you create a denote note of a different file type. So denote type. I'll do text format. This is a text note. I'll put a file keyword on it, whatever. All right, and this is what a text file note looks like in Denote. If I wanted to insert a link, here is a link. I will use denote link to insert a link. I'll link to System Crafters. All right, so now we got a link here to System Crafters. It's not buttonized though, which is kind of interesting. Let me run that manually. Denote, wait, what's it called? Denote link buttonize buffer. Denote link buttonize. Oh, they removed it. Okay, that's fine. So let's find the new one then. Denote fontify links mode maybe. Denote fontify links mode. Oh, where's the maybe version? All right, so that does work. It actually does change the text of the link to the actual note title, but the file itself doesn't have this. It's actually just the buffer being changed to have the text instead of it being inserted directly. So it's kind of nice that a text file can have this capability. Let me go change that. Now, it's weird that this, maybe this function is a function and not a command. So denote fontify, there it is, maybe. What's the difference? Enable it in a denote file unless it's in org mode. Cool, that makes sense. So what it's saying is call me maybe if it's not an org file. Yes, sorry, that was terrible. We'll go back to the init.el file. Would you stop? All right, let's go back to the init file. I'll just drop this in here. Okay. So that's pretty neat if you use Markdown or text note files, which I don't really. However, I have used Markdown files a few times. It is kind of useful to use Markdown notes in Denote if you, let's say you want to write a description for a GitHub issue or pull request, and you want to write it in Markdown, but you want to sort of write it, do a good job of writing it without having to go into like the text box on github.com to write it. I usually create a Denote note to write up all the Markdown stuff, and then I'll copy that into like a GitHub issue. Ashraz is groaning, so I think Ashraz must have caught up to the stream by this point. Okay, the notion of maybe in the symbol of that function is because this will take care to be activated only in the right context, because it's not needed in org mode files, obviously. Okay, so how to make org export work in a Denote silo. There is a related blog post for this. So it's not a change in Denote per se. Basically, the org export machinery dismisses directory local variables. Thus breaking how Denote silos work. So a Denote silo, if you don't know what it is basically a feature where you can have multiple Denote directories. So there's only one Denote directory. Like the variable Denote directory points to a single path. If you want to have another place where you have a separate set of Denote notes, you can create a directory local variable file for that directory and set Denote directory in that directory to point to itself or whatever directory you want, let's say. That way, inside the scope of a particular directory, your Denote directory is different and it can create files in a different place. So the reason why this is important is because if you wanted to use that kind of a directory silo for another set of Denote notes, like maybe you're actually writing your blog using Denote, you have all those separate from your personal notes. Apparently, org export did not work correctly with that in the past. I had never actually run into that, but probably because I hadn't tried it yet. Let's see. We can work around this by having an extra bind directive in the front matter of each file. So in this post apparently discusses how you do that. I think that this bind allows you to set a directory. So inside of a file, you can set the Denote directory in the org file so that it sets that variable every time you open the file. And then you need to use a dirlocals.el to automatically insert the bind in the front matter. So it seems like a bit of a headache, but it is fixable. So kudos to Perticelos for looking into how to fix that, because I'm sure that was affecting someone's workflow. All right. So, org headings can have their own backlinks. This is kind of interesting. So Denote could already link to an org heading directly, but now it can also generate a backlinks buffer for the current heading using the command denote org extras backlinks for heading. So I haven't actually tried using heading links. Yeah, so he makes a good point here. I'm providing this as an option for those who absolutely need it, though it is my opinion is better to have atomic notes such that each file contains information that is relevant as a whole. In this workflow, individual headings can be added or removed, but the big picture of the file remain intact. Yeah, I do agree with that. But in a note system, sort of like Denote or org-rome, having a huge org file that has sections that you're trying to link to separately, it kind of smells like that should be separate notes because they have their own identity in a way. So it is something that you don't necessarily want to turn into something bigger. org-rome added that as a feature at some point, and I think that it complicates things. So Denote org extras backlinks for heading. I haven't actually done this. Let's actually try it. So if I go into, come on now. Let's go into one of the notes in the folder. So Ideas for new videos. Do Emacs from scratch, Ep1 over again. Can I do a link to this? How do I do a link to... Oh, come on. Link to heading. The Denote org extras link to heading. Apparently that's... So select file. Maybe I should go to a different file first. System crafters. All right. Link to heading. I'm going to link to ideas for new videos. Okay, so it links the headings from the file, which is kind of useful if you need to do this. All right, so now this is a link to a heading inside of the particular note. And okay, it's got like a org heading ID here apparently, which is interesting. So now if you were to go into the ideas for new videos buffer and say org extras, I got to do the whole name, Denote org extras backlinks for heading, you can see that the, ooh, is it that slow? Okay, you can see that there is a entry for that system crafters note as a backlink to this specific heading. But like I said, I don't really think that's a good idea. Lano says, not always. If they are the same or really similar topic, it's helpful. You mean like having them in the same note file? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think that it's better to strive for having smaller notes. It makes a lot of things easier. All right. It says, at any rate, this change is possible due to the requisite refactoring of the code that handles the backlinks. We can technically produce backlinks to any pattern in files, though this may be more of interest to developers rather than foreshadow future features in core Denote. We can technically produce backlinks to any pattern in files. That's an interesting statement. Redacted says, Zettelkasten is supposed to have meta notes to link together related stuff so you can keep things atomic. Yes, exactly. And that's the way that I tend to do it. Elijah says, org-roam v2 sort of goes the other direction by way of assigning UUIDs to files and individual headings so you can stably link to a heading even if you move it to a different file. It does complicate things more than a little, though. Yeah. I just feel like it's not necessarily the best idea, especially... So in org-roam, it makes more sense because org-roam has a database where all this stuff can kind of be indexed and kept. Denote is doing things based on file names, and it's sourcing all that information dynamically. So the more that you start shoving things into the files, and to look at backlinks, you actually have to look into the contents of files. Well, I guess you have to look at the contents of files anyway, so maybe it's not a big deal, but it just feels like it's more work for the package to have to deal with headings also, but maybe not. Binary control over confirmations while renaming. The denote rename no confirm is deprecated and superseded by the more flexible user option denote rename confirmations. Excuse me. So if you've used denote long enough, you've probably had to rename a note, either the title of the note or add or remove a tag from a note. Very useful thing to do. So let's say I'm in this note, System Crafters ideas for new videos. I have a tag on it, KL. I can use denote rename. Denote rename. Oh, actually, let me show you the way that I used to do this. So I'll say test as a tag for this. So I added test by hand. I typed in test as a tag for this file. Now I can say denote rename file. And what it does is it looks at the metadata of the file at the top, and it says, oh, do you want to rename this file to... I think it's probably just not showing me the... Oh, okay. That's a prompting one. The note rename file using front matter. That's the one I usually did. So it prompts you to say rename this file with a tag of KL to a file with tags KL and test. You can say yes or no. All right, I'm going to say no here because I really don't want to do that. So I think that this prompting thing is about when you're trying to rename a file based on some piece of information. Let's see. Denote rename confirmations controls what the user is prompted for, if anything. Let me check out what that actually has in it. So denote rename confirmations. This value is rewrite front matter, modify file name. Make renaming commands prompt for confirmations. Rewrite front matter means that renaming commands will ask for confirmation before rewriting the front matter. So if you remove that from this list, it will stop asking you whenever you use the rewrite functions. Oh, that's a different thing. That's for rewriting the front matter based on the file name, which is something I use less often, but I guess it's possible that you could do that. Modify file name means that the renaming commands will ask for confirmation before modifying the file name. Okay, so that's probably based on the front matter. Add front matter means renaming commands will ask for confirmation before adding new front matter to the file. Okay, I mean, it's some pretty reasonable settings here, I think. The default behavior of denote rename file command is to ask for an affirmative answer as a final step before changing the file name and, where relevant, inserting or updating the corresponding front matter. So it does two things, apparently. Specialized commands may internally bind this user option to a non-nil value in order to perform their operation. Okay, fine. So let's try that actually. I'm going to go into init.el. I'm going to set denote, what was it called? Rename confirmations. Man, you saw my fingers just started typing configurations. Confirmations. And once again, rewrite front matter, modify file name. I'm just going to take that modify file name out. So rewrite front matter. Okay. So I'm going to use Control-Alt-X on that use package form. And now that variable should be set. And if I go back to this system crafters thing, test, and then rename file using front matter. Oh, it's still, It's interesting that it's telling me it's going to replace the front matter because it doesn't need to do that. That's fine though. I guess if you just set that whole thing to nil, it probably doesn't bug you about any of it, but I don't know. Not sure what the best approach is there. I kind of like the prompt just to make sure I'm not making to make sure I'm not making mistakes. So let's take that back off. I'll run the rename using front matter again. And that's all good. The user option denote save buffer after creation is renamed to denote save buffers. Okay, so basically just a variable rename. I'm sure there's an alias for that. I mean, I kind of like the verbosity of the previous name. I don't know why it needed to be changed. Because it's more vague now, in my opinion. Oh, it also applies to notes affected by the renaming commands. I gotcha. Okay. So since it's not just for creation, it makes sense to change that. Commands denote keywords add and denote keywords remove are replaced by denote rename file keywords. Interesting. The new command can add or remove keywords. It does this by pre-populating the minibuffer prompt with the existing keywords. Users can use the CRM separator to write new keywords or edit what's there. Okay. So, denote rename file keywords. Denote rename file keywords. Okay, so rename to test, foo. Yes. All right, so that does work. And if I want to remove those tags, it's already pre-populated with the list of tags. So I can just go ahead and take those out. And then it will ask me to it'll prompt me to confirm again, and it did work. Okay. So that's fine. I was actually using the denote keyword add, whatever it was called. Add, nah. Yeah, denote keyword add, keywords add. I was using that in the past. So that's a little bit different for me, but that's okay. It makes sense why he would make that change. It's a more flexible approach. Technically, denote rename file keywords is a wrapper for denote rename file, doing all the things that it does. Let's actually take a look at that. So denote rename file keywords. I'm sure this is going to do something that is talked about later in the notes. Maybe not. Okay. So all it basically does is set up a let binding for denote prompts and sets it to only keywords, and then interactively calls denote rename files. So this kind of shows you what the extensibility model of denote is as it relates to prompts, because if you want to customize the prompts that come up in a denote command, you just use a let binding to temporarily override denote prompts with whatever prompts you want, and then call this sort of essential function, either denote, the denote command for creating a new note, or denote rename file apparently now does that. So I think that it's a good idea because it makes the customization of various commands consistent. The way that you do that is by affecting the denote prompts. So I don't know if that's actually the if that's a new thing or if that's the way it's been, but now it's just clearer based on the way the commands have been changed. Let's see. The commands denote rename file title and denote rename file signature. These are like the rename keywords we just covered. They're wrappers of the denote rename file command, which are used to change on the file name component they reference. If that component exists, the text is included in the minibuffer. Okay. So it's the same thing. Basically, these commands have been changed to now use the underlying denote rename file command, and they will prompt you with the existing content for that prompt, the related content for that prompt in the file. More commands to add, remove keywords in bulk from DRED. Now, this is something I haven't really used very much, but it would be useful for managing your notes over time. Like maybe you have come up with a new tagging strategy for your notes, and you want to go in your notes folder and rename a whole bunch of files with new tags. So 2 new specialized commands are available. There's denote DRED rename marked files add keywords, and there's a similar one for remove keywords. There was already a command for this that is rename with keywords, which rewrites all the keywords instead of doing adds or removes. It's interesting they had this and not for individual files. All 3 of these commands operate only on the keywords component of the file name, leaving everything else as is. Okay, so let's take a look at that one. I'm going to go into a DRED buffer for my notes folder. Let's see, Control-X, J, Control-X, Control-J. There we go. Wow, there's so many backup files in here. Kind of gross. All right, so I'll just mark some of these with we'll mark some of these notes, and we will use denote DRED rename marked files add keywords. So I'm just going to add a keyword foo. So now all of the files that I had marked should have foo as a tag in the file name, and if you go into those notes, you'll see that foo is also added to the front matter as well. So that is pretty useful. Now you can't undo that very easily. So if you make a mistake and you change a bunch of files, and you'll probably need to use something like, what is it? DRED mark regexp. Yeah, mark files regexp, which is a %(m). If you say _foo, we'll mark all files with _foo in them. But some of these we don't want because they're like backup files. I hate this backup file nonsense or autosave file stuff. Let's unmark some of these. Hey, did I press U? Okay, no, I didn't. Get rid of these. All right, so the other ones, they all look legit. So if I wanted to remove that foo tag from all those, I could similarly run denote DRED rename marked files remove keywords. Now remove that foo keyword, and now they're all gone. Redacted says, I think some of them are lock files. Yeah, you're right. They're lock files. I never see them because I turn all that stuff off. So I forget what they're called. All right. What else? Denote org extras, convert links to file type, and return relative paths. Convert links to file type. Oh, okay. So there's a, I bet this has to do with exporting. Org link file type, file path type. What does this function do? Denote org link. What's it called? Convert links to file type. Jeff says saving files to get rid of the lock files. Apparently the auto saving is not turned on by default in the configuration. Where was that? Denote save buffers. Oh, probably that should be set to true. Let me go do that actually. Let's put that in the config because that's a pretty useful function. Denote save buffers T. I probably need that in my config, my actual config. Denote save, let's say org save all buffers. Okay, there you go. So maybe now in the, oh, okay, there we go. After a refresh, a lot of that's gone, except for the text file, because that command doesn't work with text files. Yeah, that's a lock file, sure. All right, those are still there. Let's delete those. Okay. There we go. At least we have less stuff. Isn't there a command for denote mark, sorry, dired mark backup? Yeah, there's some command for marking all of the, oh, it's tilde. Aha, yeah, there you go. If you use the tilde character in this buffer, it will automatically mark all of these files for deletion. Then you can just press X to delete them. Okay, all those backup files. All right, now we've cleaned it up. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, the convert links to file type can return relative paths. I'm not exactly sure what that's for, but since I don't recognize it, then it means I must not need it. For developers or advanced users, the denote add prompts is made public. This is used to let bind any additional prompts that should be used by the denote command. Check the source code for how we're using this function. So denote add prompts. Okay, that's a function. List of additional prompts to denote prompts. This is best done instead of a let to create a wrapper function around denote rename file, and generally any command that consults the value of denote prompts. Seek union, additional prompts, denote prompts. That's a weird way to do this. So let me search for usages of this. Denote add prompts. So let denote prompts. Okay. All right. It returns a new value that then gets let bound to denote prompts. So denote add prompts adds it to whatever the value of denote prompts is. I see now. Okay. So this is the implementation of denote subdirectory. Let me see if I can get back there. Okay. Denote signature. So in denote signature, it is just wrapping the denote interactive command with a let that binds denote prompts to whatever the existing prompts are with signature. So this is a way that you can add new prompts to your denote command, not with the default list, but if you want like an extra prompt for some specific purpose. So if you have a custom command that you are writing, you can do that. I mean, that could be useful. Maybe it's more useful for extension authors. Because if I was writing a custom denote prompting function, I would probably be explicit about which prompts I wanted rather than just trying to add them to whatever the defaults are. So this may be for extension authors. Denote select linked file prompt is now public. This is used internally, but the commands denote find link, find backlink refer to the implementation of these commands to get an idea of how to use this prompt. So this is a new prompt for selecting a linked file. So maybe this is where if you find link, find backlink. Use minibuffer completion to visit linked file. Oh. Denote select linked file prompt. Prompt for linked file among files. Denote link return links. Return list of links in the current or optional file. Okay, that's kind of cool. So basically, in the current buffer, you can run denote link return links to get all links to other denote files that are in the current buffer. And then denote select linked file prompt will prompt you for which one you want. So it looks like denote find link is a way to, let's go to the system crackers node. It's a way to quickly jump to a link in the current file. So denote find link. Cool. Yeah. So it basically just gives you a mini buffer prompt for all of the notes that are linked in this file. So you can easily jump to them. That's fine. Makes sense. Denote retrieve title or file name is just a wrapper. Simply calls denote retrieve front matter title value or denote retrieve file name title. We do not want it to return the file name base. All right, so this is just if you need to call the function for a given denote file to retrieve the title or the file name. File prompt is more robust. We've made this function show relative file paths for the convenience of the user. We take care to internally return and store the full file path. Okay. Denote file prompt now takes a no require match argument. I see. Respects the aforementioned user option of denote excluded files. Okay, it's just improving that the user experience of that prompt, apparently. I see. Okay, so relevant functions conform with the new denote rename confirmations. That makes sense. All file name components can be let bound. We define a new series of variables which can be set to a lexically scoped value to control what the denote function parses. Use title. The title to be used in a note creation command. Oh, okay. So I think this means that you can default a prompt to a value using this approach. So if you can default it to a date, you can default it to a title. Let's actually try that in a little Scratch buffer. So this is gonna work. Let's see, denote, what was it? Use title, my new note. Okay, then I'll run this with Control-Alt-X. Oh, so interesting. Yeah, so it just used that value. It didn't even bother prompting me for that value. And I'm guessing that it would use a date or something else if I asked it to. So that could be pretty useful if you have some automation where you want to cause denote to use that. Now, the denote command or function, let's say, already has optional parameters for all the same things, title, keywords, etc., etc. Now, when called from Lisp, all arguments are optional. I guess this just makes it so that you don't have to in eLisp, you don't have to call this directly. You can call it interactively and then preset some of these prompts to specific values. So that could be useful. I can see how that would be useful. So I'll probably end up using that for some of the things I've been working on recently. Miscellaneous, how much more in this? All right, it's not too much. All the org dynamic blocks defined by Denote are now auto-loaded. That's useful because I was having to require those in my config. So you don't need to require Denote org extras to use the dblock functionality. That's cool, I like that. The value of the user option denote link backlinks display buffer action is slightly modified to make the buffer dedicated to its window and try to preserve its size. So I guess just to make it play more nicely in your window layout. Fix the bug in denote link and or capture buffers. Denote file type heuristics no longer chokes if it gets a nil value, such as in or capture buffers. Okay, so I guess the file type isn't set yet. That's useful. Denote journal extras directory falls back to denote directory's value is nil. Okay. All prompts should have their scope of application in all capital letters, such as select template key. The idea is to make it easier for the user to quickly spot what the prompt is about. Okay, it's just a naming change. User option denote link description function is documented in the manual. Link description function. What's that? Wow, it's so slow when I'm typing these characters. Link description function. To create descriptions of links, the function specified takes a file argument and returns the description as a string. Okay, is that for whenever you have a link in a file? That could be cool, actually. Denote link description with signature and title is the default value. If we take a look at that. What does it do? Okay, just, excuse me, formats the string based on whether it has a signature, title, or signature, etc. So that could be useful if you want your denote links, the text of denote links to show up a certain way in files to improve the way it looks. Denote org extras, we now always jump to the correct org heading line instead of missing it by one under certain conditions. Sounds like just a small little bug. All right, so we made it through the Denote 3.0 improvements list. So overall, I would say that what I've seen is just sort of cleaning up the extensibility model of the denote command and the denote rename command, the rename file command, which is good because it makes it easier for people to build on top of Denote, other workflows or functionality. So I'm guessing that the new consult package might actually be related to some of these changes. So let's take a look at that now. This is consult-denote, which provides glue code to integrate Denote with the consult package. The idea is to enhance minibuffer interactions, such as by providing a preview of the file to be linked opened and by adding more sources to the consult buffer command. So you can enable the consult-denote mode to get started. So let me actually pull that into the configuration that we have. Here I will say use package consult-denote. I'm gonna do a little after here, after denote consult. I don't know if it matters. Insert T, and it said to use consult denote mode. I'll say 1 on that. Let's go ahead and install this. Okay. So, not known to be defined. That's interesting. First of all, consult. Well, let me actually just check out the code. Especially, I suppose I don't need to do that, but we'll start with this. There are sources being added for consult. If you didn't know what a source is, basically, whenever you use consult buffer, let's say. Now, in this consult prompt, you can just, select the name of a buffer, like my new note, whatever, that's fine. But there's other things you can type in, like P space. And what that will do is filter down all of the buffers in the listing to the current project, which is going to be a nice way to get project-specific buffer listings without having to use a separate command. You can start using your normal consult buffer command to look at all open buffers, but then you can filter to other things. There's also a way to use, like, I think B space to look at all buffers, which can be useful. And sometimes whenever you have your default console buffer source to be like project or something else, and you want to look at all the list of buffers, that could be pretty useful. Now it seems that there is a new source for denote buffers. So if I were to go back into consult buffer and type capital D space, now it's filtered everything down to denote buffers. And that's because I am using the consult-denote buffer source. What else does it say about that? Has its own face, state, items, etc., etc. Let's do that one more time. So if I were to, it previews them whenever you search through them. That's cool. There's also a subdirectory source. It lists your denote subdirectories, which is kind of interesting. Is that for, oh, it's for consult file, apparently. Now, where does that, oh, consult-denote find. Is that grepping? Yeah, it seems to be... just grepping over the list of file names? Okay, that's interesting. All right, let's look at the docs. I'm just kind of scanning the code. Let's actually look at the information. Consult-denote is designed to enhance all relevant denote prompts with whatever extras consult provides. Judy says, it looks like find file. Does consult automatically do something with find file? Consult mode? No. Yeah, okay. Anyway. Whatever extra consult provides, such as the preview facility, these console-powered minibuffer prompts will still follow the same patterns of interaction as core denote. They will never use a profoundly different presentation. I think basically what he's saying is they're not going to pull the titles of your notes for you and show them in the list. It's just another way to sort of group your files together whenever you're looking at consult lists. Customize what consult buffer shows from denote. The extra sources added to consult buffer command are controlled by the user option consult-denote buffer sources. Let's take a look at that. So consult-denote buffer sources. The subdirectory source and the silo source. Okay. So if I were to look at the subdirectory source, is that a variable? Yes. Denote subdirectories. Denote directory subdirectories. I see. And that is in which? Consult denote buffers. That must be where that's being used, I think. Or not. Anyway. Judy says, I think I meant it works like find file in the sense that it does not scan file contents for narrowing. Yes. That's right. Yeah, it's just looking at the file names. Let's see. Customize what consult buffer shows from denote. The extra sources added to... Did I just read that one? Consult denote buffer sources. Buffer source. Okay. All right. So then there's the all sources. All sources. Where was that? All buffer. Is that not in here? Huh. What version am I looking at here? It's 0.11. Okay, so is this like out of date even compared to the 0.10 release notes? That would be interesting. Develop in tandem with Denote. My goal with this package is to keep it as close to Denote as possible. If the community wants a new feature, we can discuss whether a variant of it makes sense for Denote before considering its inclusion in consult-denote. So that's pretty much it on the notes here. Let me actually take a look at the repo in case it has more information. Oh, usually there's a manual too. So maybe I missed the manual link. Not available yet. Okay. Easy search for the Denote directory. Implement consult-powered grep and find commands which operate on the Denote directory regardless of where they're called from. See the commands consult-denote grep and consult-denote find. Consult-denote grep. Sys. All right, so that's grepping the actual contents of the notes. I mean, yeah, I guess if you are somewhere else in Emacs and you're not in a Denote note or inside of your folder, then running this command makes sense because it can get you to grep inside those files. Also, consult-denote find helps you to find files with a particular string in the name. That could be something that would be helpful for jumping to your Denote notes and looking for something specific. Usually for me, I have my Denote notes folder set up as a project by just having like a Git directory in there. Like I just go use Git init. I haven't actually committed anything in my notes. I just have a Git folder there so that project.el treats it as a project. And then I'll use Control XPP to select that project. And then in there, I have a prompt for finding a file or doing grep or something like that. So I haven't really needed something like this because I already have my own way of dealing with it, but it is nice to have a more, let's say, official way to do it with consult. Judy says, I do kind of like the grep. I use consult grep all the time in projects. Yeah, I use consult rip grep constantly. Consult rip grep is basically how I find anything in code projects. Okay, include denote sources for consult buffer. It's also part of the consult-denote mode. Adds new headings, groups to the interface of consult buffer command. List the buffers that visit denote files. Subdirectories of denote directory. And the silos listed in the value denote silo extra directories. Okay, so it's just an easier way to jump to certain things, it sounds like. Yeah, ripgrep does require ripgrep as a dependency. But honestly, I haven't looked to see if the grep form is, maybe it's just fast enough, but ripgrep is super fast, so it's useful. Knight HK says, I found this useful, and he's linking to consult notes. I actually do use consult notes when I want to search for notes using their title and not just the file name. So it is handy. It's also handy if you are using both org-roam and denote, because maybe you switch to denote, but you still have org-roam notes like I do. That can allow you to search over the titles of both those sets of notes. And that is consult notes by Colin McClear. I don't know why I got to the commits link, but here's the actual repo page. So this could be useful. There's another consult integration for denote and org-roam, basically. All right. What else is interesting in this file? L for silos. Okay. So yeah, it doesn't do a whole lot, but that's fine because what it does is pretty useful, I think, and it's optional. I think it's good that Prot did not include this in Denote and made it a separate package because it's not entirely necessary. It's sort of just like a value add on top of Denote. So it's good to have that as a separate thing you can pull in, and also that it's pretty small. But maybe it will add some more behavior. as time goes on. So since we have some time, I think what might be interesting is to go dig around a little bit in some of these other files in the Denote distribution. So we've seen rename buffer before. It basically gives you the ability to rename the name of a buffer for a Denote note when you go into it. So if you want the buffer name to be actually the title of the note or maybe some prefix before the note, you can do that. So that one's not super useful. There's silo extras. We were talking about silos before, which is like a separate Denote directory. And I think this is only just as a way to make it easier for you to manage notes in your silos. So for instance, there's an extra prompt you can use to select which silo you want to create a note in. Ashraz is correct. This is modus vivendi tinted, which, yeah, it is pretty nice actually. And it's built in now in Emacs 30. So that's pretty sweet. I mean, nice to have a nice looking theme kind of there by default. Kind of system crafter-y in a way. Let's see. So creating notes in silos, open or creating notes in silos. So I think a lot of the same commands that you have for base Denote, there's like wrapper versions for silos. Now, we're letting Denote directory be the silo directory. Okay. So, and we've got a prompt in the interactive side of things. So that's basically how this is working, is that there's an interactive prompt that shows up for the silo, and then that value gets used. Okay, cool. All right, so that's that. What's next? Sort. I haven't seen that before. Oh, at the top it says sort Denote files based on a file name component. Must be for DRED. Sort comparison function. Denote sort files. Return a sorted list of Denote files. Okay, this might be used in the dblock stuff because there's a sorting capability for the dblocks. Excuse me. Sort get links. Denote sort DRED. Produce DRED buffer with sorted files from variable Denote directory and called interactively prompt for files matching regex. What does that do? Denote sort DRED. Match files, PRA. Sort by file name component. Title, sure. Reverse sort, no. Okay. I mean, that could be useful if you want to do mass operations on files, I think. If you only want to denote, a DRED buffer that has a certain subset of your files, maybe you want to rename some stuff or you want to add or remove keywords across those, that could be useful. Let me check that one more time. Match files with a given regex. Gotcha. So yeah, if you want to get all files that have system in the name, let's say, sort by file name component, identifier, reverse sort, no, then you have all the system crafters notes in this case, anything with system in the name, and then you can do what you want to those. So that could be kind of useful. So we'll look at the org and dblock stuff in a second. There's also journal extras. Convenience functions for daily journaling. Personally, I don't really feel like I need these because the default behavior of Denote is so useful for journaling that, well, I guess we should just take a look and see what they do, because as of yet, I don't really know why you need it. So there's a separate journal directory for storing daily journal entries. This can either be the same as the variable Denote directory or the subdirectory of it. Okay. And then you have a keyword to automatically add to journal entries, a title format. Okay, that's kind of nice. So you don't have to title the notes yourself. They can have a format that is based on the current date. Extras hook, normal hook called after new entry, uses to, for example, set a timer after starting a new journal entry. That's kind of cool. Extras directory, title format. Okay, this is all the internal functions, it seems. Hey, come on. New entry, denote journal extras new entry. Create a new journal entry in the variable, blah, blah, blah. With optional date as a prefix argument, prompt for a date. Okay, so if you do like control U, denote journal extras new entry, cool. It prompts you for a date. That's good. So now I ran that command directly and it gave me a journal entry for today's date, and I can just start typing whatever I want in there. So, I mean, I guess that could be pretty useful. Just as a quick way to get a journal entry written. I wonder if it will jump back to the current day if you do new entry. Let's see. No, I created 2. I guess I asked it to, so. And there was another one, entry today, new or existing entry. Okay, is that interactive as well? Locate an existing journal entry or create a new one. Journal entry is one that has the keyword as part of its file name. All right, so let's try that. Denote journal extras new or existing entry. I think it might have. No, create a new one. Let me delete the old one and try that again. New or existing entry. Doesn't seem to be working. I must have done something wrong. If there are multiple journal entries for current date, prompt for one using minibuffer completion. If there's only one, visit it outright. Link or create entry. Okay. So it doesn't seem to work. New or existing entry. All right, I created a new one, saved it, closed it. Ran it again. Now I have 2. Ran it again. Now I have 3. All right, so that one's not really working. Why does it say 1923 at the end? Oh, the time. Ah, because the time is in the title. That might be why. Timestamp with microseconds. Yeah, but it should be able to find it based on the slugged version of the name, I think. Where is that? New or existing entry. Denote parse date. Entry today. No. Yeah, it tries to format the time string for the current day. List of files matching a journal for today or optional date. Okay, something's wrong there. Anyway, it doesn't matter too much. The idea is that it should work, but it doesn't. That's okay. Org extras. We've seen a little bit of this already. Link to file and heading. Okay. Extras outline prompt. I think it gives you the headings for a given file as a prompt. Prompt for outline among headings retrieved by org extras get outline. Link to heading. Okay, so creating links to headings. We saw that one already. Backlinks for headings, saw that. Extract subtree. Now that one's kind of interesting. Create a new denote note using the current org subtree as input. So if you wanted to move a subtree and a note, like for instance, if you've been writing something and you feel like, okay, this maybe needs to be its own note file, you can use this extract org subtree to move it to a new note. So take the text of the subtree's top level heading and use it as the title of the new note. That can be pretty useful. I actually have used that one before. What was that? Convert links from denote to file and vice versa. Maybe that's part of what we were looking for previously, one of the things in the changelog. Yeah, convert links to file type. This must be for exporting. Convert denote links to file links in the current org buffer. So you're basically, excuse me, a link in a buffer to another denote note is not linking to the file name specifically. It's linking to a denote note ID. I know it's too many notes in that phrase. So if I use Control-C, Control-L, you can see that the link actually is denote colon and then the ID of the note. So what this convert links to file type does is it goes through all the links in the buffer, and if they're denote links, it converts it to the equivalent file path. That's probably used for the publishing process because you can't publish a denote link to like HTML because it can't. The publishing system, the OX HTML, can't actually resolve that. I actually did need this because I was thinking about publishing a site using denote. We've covered this a couple times maybe in streams, but this was going to be a problem, and I was thinking about ways to deal with it. But now there appears to be built-in functionality for that, which is pretty cool. Convert links to denote type, so you can go the opposite direction. That's kind of cool. And then dynamic blocks. The D block stuff was moved here, it seems. The D block stuff is very useful. I think it's a pretty key feature of Denote for managing a Zettelkasten type note system. And I'll be going into more detail on that, I think, in a future video. So org extras D block insert links. Yep. This must be some of the stuff about how D blocks work in practice. I haven't actually written a D block before, but the naming of this function kind of tells me that this is what org D block is looking for a given name of a D block. Org dynamic block define, denote missing links. Gotcha. Whoa, where's that? Huh. Cool. All right. So I think that's all we really can see. We've kind of gone through the whole gamut of things Denote related in the update to V3 and also the introduction of consult-denote. So anybody have any thoughts, questions about Denote or note taking with org? So we can just have a little chat for, you know, the rest of the stream. So for me, what I've been trying to do, I think I had a stream about this recently. I'm coming up with like file tagging conventions to make it easier to organize my notes. I'm also using dblock to generate link listings in note files. Ashra says a chat. Yes, we're talking, meaning we're talking now. And what else am I doing? Yeah, the next video I'm gonna put out. Man, there's helicopters flying overhead right now because of the fires, so a little bit loud. I don't know if you can hear that. So yeah, the next video that I'm gonna put out this week, hopefully. I'm not gonna make any promises because the last time I promised a video, I was in the hospital the whole week. Is about tagging tasks contextually and then using the org agenda to call up contextual tasks. Glenn says, how do you surface your notes for retrieval? That's basically it. I'm working on a file naming strategy, or let's say a file tagging strategy in Denote to pull up notes of a particular kind, but also to have meta notes that have dynamically generated lists of links that sort of index to certain types of notes that I have, and it kind of gives me a couple different ways to look at things. So which date was that? If I go to, oh, let me go back here actually. So PRA. So where was it? June 7th. Okay. Yeah, the June 7th stream, I kind of talk about this. So basically a tag system for marking certain types of notes to make it very easy to pull them up. So might want to check that one again. Ashra says, fires? Yeah, there's a lot of wildfires in Greece right now. And what my wife tells me is that people will set them on purpose. So a lot of these wildfires that are happening, it might actually be arson. I don't know that for sure, but it has happened before, and I'm sure that it's still happening. It says Greece is a pretty arid place. I would imagine that in the summer a lot of things burn. Yes, it does burn. It got pretty close to here a year or two ago. To where I live, I mean. Mike says, no way. Yes way. People are disgruntled, and they, literally just want to watch the world burn. Fade says Forest Services often do controlled burns. Well, this is not a controlled burn because there are multiple days of helicopters flying over to dump water on top of the fires. Okay. So, subversive way to clear land and blame nature? Maybe. Ashra says we had a forest arsonist last month here. 18 small fires in 10 days. Wow. Okay. That's messed up. I'm surprised that it happens in other places in the world. So just out of curiosity, when it comes to org mode, I'm curious to know what things, I know some of you here are probably already, org mode experts, but those of you who are still learning org mode, what things do you feel like you don't have a good handle on? And what things are you sort of interested in learning more about? Because I want to make more videos on org coming up soon. And I'm trying to prioritize like what stuff I want to cover. Because I have my own things in mind, but it would be probably better to cover things that people want to know about. I'm sure there's already some overlap there, but just in case. Mike says everything. Okay. I can probably help with that. Fade says, org is so flexible, it can be a bear to fix a workflow that puts you in the good place. I think the problem is that org is very much like Emacs in the sense that you can do things a million different ways. So it can be hard to settle on a single org workflow. Glenn says archiving, refiling, structure. Yep. Mike says agenda. Yep. Yeah, org is another never-ending rabbit hole. And I've gone through many iterations of my own workflow with org over the years. I've got like 4 different implementations of a workflow in my own config right now, and I don't use any except for the most recent one. Judy says archiving, refiling, and agenda. Yeah. Archiving is useful, but I kind of feel like if you're using a Zettelkasten style note setup, especially for managing projects, then archiving actually becomes a lot easier, at least for to-do items. but it could still be useful in other places. But yeah, like if you're using a traditional org mode note setup, archiving and refiling definitely makes a lot of sense. Refiling is pretty useful if you have an inbox. So like if you use capture templates and you're capturing new notes or to-do items in your inbox file, then eventually you have to go back and refile those items to other places. So that could be useful. Judy says, I feel like refiling may do what I need, but I haven't wrapped my head around it. Knight HK says, visualizing and reporting your org clock history. Where do you spend your time? Yeah, I haven't really used that very much either. I mean, I've used clocking, but I haven't used like the reporting functionality, and I think that might be pretty cool. Mike says, I'm looking at using a static site generator for blog posting. I wanted to use org mode for it. You should check out the series that I started on that. I actually do have a few videos on it already. It's not a complete series, but at least it starts you off. Judy says, essentially, I would like to have a current to-dos list that I refile, archive into the appropriate projects when they're done, essentially as history. Yeah, there's multiple ways to do that. And I might have a different approach for you. And Glenn is suggesting to use Haunt. Yeah, Haunt is a nice system. I've started trying to use it on one of my websites, but I haven't published it yet. But you know, if you use Emacs a lot and you write org files a lot, then org publish is probably better, just because you can already publish org files to a website. Judy says, because I have too many projects to keep a separate to-do file for every project. Well, I have a solution for that too, actually. In the way that I set up Denote notes and automatically tag them as project notes and then have them show up in the agenda automatically. So basically, this tagging setup that I came up with, I have a function that looks for PRA notes, which are project active, and adds them to the agenda automatically. And then whenever a project is no longer active, like I've backlogged it or I've completed it, I retag the file to PRB or PRC, which means backlogged or completed, and they don't show up in the agenda anymore. So that way you can have Denote notes that pop up in the agenda whenever a project is active, but then you don't have to like archive them away somewhere. That note just lives because it's specifically about an atomic project. When I think of a project, I'm not thinking about system crafters as a project. I'm thinking about like write script for video X, you know, like something that has a very focused set of to-do items. And, you know, project is something that can be completed in the short term, in my opinion. Anything larger than that is a more long-term topic where projects are generated from, and those projects have their own notes. So it's an interesting twist on the traditional way of managing projects in org mode, and I think it's better. I'm not 100% certain yet, but I have a pretty strong feeling that it is better, and it leverages the benefits of Denote and org together to do something that makes things like refiling less necessary, archiving and refiling less necessary, puts more use into the agenda, and helps you to focus on like more narrow things you need to do at any given time. So anyway, I'm looking forward to making some videos on that. See you, Jeff. All right, I've been ignoring the YouTube chat. Sorry about that. Stupa Optimized says, recently got rid of org mode, loving the streams. Please keep your health. I'm trying. I'm much better now. Thank you. I can't believe it says, including other types of content in org mode files like images, org download, using tables of formulas. Tables and formulas are pretty useful. I've actually started using that more in the last year or so. It's a little bit weird at first, but it is quite useful, especially because you can check those in. Rudy says, for me, contributing bug fixes and simpler features to org, that would be interesting. I haven't actually done it myself. Stupa Optimized says org for literate programming. Excuse me. Yeah, I guess I haven't covered that, have I? Stupa Optimized says I was looking at org for static site generation, but also looked at Hackle or Frog Scribble for generating some web pages. So, yeah, org is good for static site creation. It takes a little bit of work to massage it into the things that you need, but it is serviceable. I mean, all of systemcorrectors.net is created with org publish. Mike says, can you offer any hits on what you're thinking in terms of new classes? Well, at least the one that I'm thinking about right now. I got two in mind. The one that's relevant to this conversation is, I haven't really settled on a name yet, but what I want to do is have a full course to help you build a complete productivity and note-taking system with Emacs using org mode and Denote. But starting from just, normal org mode features first, and then eventually introducing Denote later, and sort of moving some of the things that we've already done with org mode into Denote specific functionality so that you can kind of see the progression. And along the way, actually teaching Emacs Lisp too, because part of the point here is that you're writing your own system. I'm sort of giving you a pattern to follow, but the idea would be that, you should be able to take that and customize it and add your own stuff that suits your own workflow. So learning a bit of Emacs Lisp would be necessary for that. So it would be a course for org mode and Emacs, some level of Emacs Lisp customization, and Denote. Also productivity in general. How do you apply all this to build an end-to-end productivity system? And also some thoughts on note-taking, note organization, journaling, etc. I've started on the sort of overall outline of the course. I think I'm going to do an early access thing on it, so that might come out next week. It depends on when I get the first org video out. But I want to actually develop it with people, so have people validating the ideas as I'm going through it. So I might do an early access on that so that people who are interested in sort of walking through the process with me can try out the ideas, give me the feedback, and then I can sort of iterate on that before it becomes like a real course, maybe in a few months. Ashra says, what I noticed is that many resources already tell how notes are getting filed, but there are not many that show notes are actually getting found and used later. Yeah, that is a big problem, actually. It's been a problem for me over the years. I'll write a ton of notes, especially in Denote, and I'll rarely go back and look at them. So part of the workflow that I'm going to teach, both in YouTube videos, but also in this course, is kind of like a review process for reviewing your existing notes, and then like how do you use that information as time goes on and not just leave it kind of hiding in an old note file somewhere. So that is a big thing. It's a big thing for me too, because I've got so much stuff in my notes that I don't really go back to, but then when I actually do go reread some of my old notes, I find a lot of really useful stuff in there, things that I've forgotten. So a review process for that is certainly warranted. Zororg says, I'm on the boat of single big org file. Org tags really aids in searching with orgql. I think users should use tags more extensively. I agree on the tagging aspect. I used to have a large date tree file. I would keep separate date tree files per year, and then at some point I was doing it per month. It could be useful to have everything in one big file. I don't really see a lot of downsides. If you have literally one file that has everything in it, I think it's probably too much because the performance is going to go down over time. But it can be a way to easily find things. But I don't necessarily think that's the only way to organize your information. So I have other thoughts on that. Mike says, is it possible to use org mode to do a sort of web clipper type functionality? It is possible. org browser capture. What is it called? Oh, that's not what I was thinking. There's something else. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. So this is not so much like a clipper. I think it's just giving you links, but it appears that there are other ones too, like the one by Alpha Papa here, which may allow you to, excuse me. Does this give you a browser extension, or is it just Anyway, it is, yeah, there's the org capture protocol, which is basically a way for an external application like a browser to call into Emacs and tell it to capture some information. What you really just need is a way to grab some stuff from the page you're looking at. Yeah, the bookmarklet. I think that was what I was looking at here, this org capture thing. Maybe that's a different thing. Org capture bookmarklet. Do bookmarklets work anymore? Bookmark with org capture. It is possible to do things like that. Yeah. I haven't really used it that much, but it is possible. Fade says in Firefox is possible. Yeah, I don't know what Chrome does anymore. Let's see. Oh, and relating to other classes slash courses slash workshops that I'm thinking about. You know, we've been going through the Guile Beginners course up until now, which has gone really well. But I do want to have a course that focuses more on learning how to configure Geeks, but sort of learning Guile at the same time as a way to focus the learning of Guile, not on like, you know, how do you write a whole application with Guile, but how do you just, you know, you learn enough Guile to be able to customize Geeks beyond just installing packages or stumbling through the, you know, operating system configuration. Like, how do you write your own custom services? How do you write package definitions? Things like that. That's another one that I don't think will happen immediately, but it's something that I would like to start developing. And I might also do an early access on that one as well, just as a way to have some folks go through it with me and help me to figure out which things people most want to know. Zorg says GNU's someday, maybe. I don't know. I don't really use GNU's. I know it's powerful, but I haven't really. I tried using it back in, I want to say 2014, 2015. And I was trying to load IMAP email directly into Emacs, which I think does work. But yeah, just like the interface, it didn't make much sense to me. That was way back then when I wasn't as much of an experienced Emacs user. So maybe if I looked at it now, it'd be different. Elephant says a Guile plus Geeks course would be awesome. I really need something like that. CR no. Yeah, Geeks is tricky. Obviously, I'm going to make more videos about Geeks as well, but I kind of see, you know, like the topics that I would make a course out of, I would also make videos out of too. It's just sort of a different perspective, I would say. Like a video is kind of like, you know, condensing information on a specific topic and, you know, giving useful information. And a course is more like end to end, how do you do this whole big area? So that's sort of how I delineate those two things. And I think that both of them are valid to have. Hey, Benoit. Yes, it is the end. We're winding down now. Zorg says, I don't use GNUs for email. I use it for RSS feeds from NNTP. Well, I mean, I guess that's one way to do it. Ashraz is linking to org protocol. Essentially, you set up your operating system in a way that enables you to use org protocol as a handler. Yes, that's right. So yeah, look up org protocol, the documentation for that. Minas Mazer says, I think GNU is too tight to its legacy. I mean, GNU is, you know, pretty old now. The thing about some of the functionality in Emacs is that over time, the user interface idioms of Emacs sort of progress because things tend to improve over time, but some of the older packages that are a part of Emacs don't improve in those ways. So you end up using something that feels kind of archaic compared to more quote unquote modern packages. Now, I can't say that GNU is like that because I haven't used it in a while and I don't have a valid opinion on it, but I do know that, you know, certain things feel a bit older and crustier compared to like modern packages. I would say that lfeed and even newsticker, which is built into Emacs, are probably better for RSS than using GNU with NNTP, but I don't know. So let's see. Well, there was something I was about to say and I forgot what it was. Bade says people use news clients for that stuff because they do threading in a very nice way. Do you need threading for RSS? Or is it just like a UI thing? Looks like my IRC overlay is kind of slow, isn't it? I'm seeing the chat on the screen well before. Oh, okay, now it seems to be right. There is RSS for comments. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, UI threading is what I assumed that Fade meant, but you know, RSS feeds are not really threaded unless you end up with RSS comments. Then sure, it would be threaded. All right, so yeah, I'll be getting back to video production this week because I'm finally recovered from the whole strep debacle. So I'm back. I'll be back to the video that I'm working on, which I've got the script mostly done, and I took a little detour to deal with video editing, which we talked about last week. So I'll be getting back to that this week. So it's going to be the video about contextual tagging for tasks, and then using the org agenda view to see which tasks that you need to do at any given moment. So that should be fun. That'll kick off our new series on org productivity. And I should probably send out a newsletter soon too. It's been a while since the last one, so I'll probably do that maybe this week, maybe next week. When I say this week, I mean next week and then the following week. We'll see. I think what I'm going to do with the newsletter is start sending out once a month, because that's basically what I've been doing anyway, but I haven't really described it like that. Minas Mazer says, what about a deep dive into Emacs async? What are the advantages of using it? Well, I've never used it. But yeah, certainly we could discuss that at some point. Peter says, conqueror of strep debacle has a ring to it. Yes, geez, man. Yeah, so yeah, I got strep from my kid who goes to daycare, and I had to take antibiotics, and the antibiotics gave me an allergic reaction, so I stopped the antibiotics, and then 4 days later, I started getting arthritis, which is apparently a known side effect of getting strep. So I had to deal with that for a few days, but now I'm basically over it, I think. So thank God. Hopefully we won't get that again. Now there's COVID going around. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Benoit says, for Geeks users, Andrew Tropin has a nice video, how to install 100,000 packages in Geeks. I haven't watched that yet, but it sounds scary. 100,000 packages? All right, now it's really time to go. So keep an eye out this week for maybe a video. I'm not going to say definitively because the last time I did that, I regretted it. Or a newsletter or something of that nature. Also, those of you who are in the June iteration of the Hands-On Guile Scheme for Beginners course, tomorrow is the day that Chapter 3 is coming out. So keep an eye out for that tomorrow morning, Europe time. And yeah, we'll be back here again on Friday again for another stream as usual. So yeah, hope you all have a great weekend. And until next time, happy hacking. We'll see you.